They made sarin gas. They made VX nerve agent. They tried to acquire the Ebola virus from Zaire. They built factories to manufacture assault rifles. They sent members to Russia to try to buy a nuclear weapon. They released sarin gas in a Japanese city 9 months before Tokyo. They murdered a lawyer and his entire family, including his infant child, 6 years before the Tokyo attack. They had 50,000 members in 6 countries. They had nearly $1 billion. And on the morning of March 20, 1995, 5 of their members boarded Tokyo's busiest subway lines during morning rush hour and punctured plastic bags of sarin gas with the sharpened tips of their umbrellas. 13 people died. 5,500 were injured. The attack was not their endgame. It was a distraction, something to keep the police busy while the cult prepared for what came next. What came next was the assassination of the head of the Tokyo Metropolitan Police. What came after that was supposed to be the end of the world. Aum Shinrikyo didn't fail because they were stopped. They failed because they ran out of sarin. Shoko Asahara was born Chizuo Matsumoto in 1955 in Kumamoto Prefecture. He was partially blind from birth, a condition that, in the Japan of his childhood, qualified him for a school for the blind where he was, by the accounts of classmates, a physically dominant figure who used his partial sightedness strategically, presenting himself as more disabled than he was when it suited him and less disabled when it did not. He failed the entrance examination for Tokyo University, the pinnacle of Japanese academic aspiration, and opened a pharmacy in Chiba selling Chinese herbal remedies. In 1982, he was arrested for selling fake remedies and convicted of fraud. His pharmacy went bankrupt. This was the man who would claim to be both Christ and Buddha simultaneously, who would tell tens of thousands of followers that he had personally floated above the surface of the earth, and who would build the most dangerous terrorist organization that Japan had ever produced. He founded Aum Shinrikyo, Supreme Truth, in 1984 as a yoga class. The yoga class became a meditation center. The meditation center became a religious organization. The religious organization became, gradually and then rapidly, a totalizing institution that demanded complete submission from its members and delivered, in return, the specific promise that apocalyptic religious movements have always offered, that the world is ending, that most people will not survive, but that those who follow the correct path, who give themselves fully to the teacher and his teaching, will be among the saved. Aum's theology was syncretic, drawing on Buddhism, Hinduism, Christianity, and the specific apocalyptic tradition of Nostradamus prophecy that was popular in Japan in the 1980s. Asahara claimed to have achieved enlightenment through meditation. He claimed to be able to levitate. He claimed that by drinking his bath water or consuming his blood, followers could acquire spiritual power. He attracted, with remarkable efficiency, exactly the kind of follower he needed. Young, educated, technically skilled, alienated from the materialism of Japan's economic bubble. Looking for something that the ordinary Japanese path, the university entrance examination, the corporate career, the lifetime employment, had not provided. Scientists, engineers, doctors, lawyers, the people who would build his weapons. By the late 1980s, Aum's theology had shifted. The peaceful meditation movement had developed an increasingly violent eschatology, a framework in which the approaching apocalypse was not something to be survived through spiritual practice alone, but something that Aum itself would help to initiate. Asahara began teaching that the Japanese government was controlled by Freemasons and Jews who were conspiring to destroy Aum. He taught that a world war was coming in which nuclear weapons would be used. He taught that Aum's mission was not just to survive the apocalypse but to trigger it, to accelerate the end of the corrupt world so that the new world could begin under Aum's spiritual authority. This theological shift had a practical implication. If the world was ending anyway, and if Aum's role was to help it end, then the killing of non-believers was not murder. It was a form of spiritual liberation, sending souls to be reborn into a better world. This teaching, POA, in Aum's terminology, removed the moral barrier that would otherwise have made mass violence difficult to justify to educated professionals who had entered a meditation movement. If this history is new to you, subscribe to Unsolved East and hit like. New episodes every week. Aum Shinrikyo's weapons program was not improvised. It was systematic. By the early 1990s, Aum had established laboratories and manufacturing facilities at its compound at the base of Mount Fuji and at other locations across Japan. The scientific and engineering expertise of its recruited members, many of them graduates of Japan's elite universities, was being directed toward the production of weapons of mass destruction with the specific goal of triggering the apocalypse that Asahara had been predicting. The Sarin program was the most advanced. Masami Tsuchiya, a chemistry graduate from Tsukuba University, led the development of Aum's Sarin production capability. The specific technical challenges of producing military-grade sarin in sufficient quantities for large-scale attack were addressed through a combination of purchased chemical precursors, improvised production equipment, and the specific patience of a program that was willing to spend years developing capability before deploying it. By 1993, Aum was producing sarin. The biological weapons program ran in parallel. Aum members traveled to Zaire during the 1995 Ebola outbreak, ostensibly as medical volunteers, with the actual mission of acquiring samples of the Ebola virus for weaponization. The mission did not succeed in acquiring viable samples. The attempt itself, a religious cult dispatching members to an active hemorrhagic fever outbreak zone in Central Africa to steal virus samples, communicates the specific ambition of the program. The firearms program ran in parallel. Aum established factories that were manufacturing AK-47 assault rifles. The specific industrial capacity of a religious organization producing its own assault weapons communicates the extent to which Aum had moved from a spiritual movement to a paramilitary organization. In Russia, where Aum had established a significant presence and had cultivated relationships with Russian political and military figures in the chaos following the Soviet Union's collapse, members attempted to acquire a nuclear weapon. They did not succeed. They had nearly succeeded in acquiring the contacts to try. The 1995 subway attack was not Aum's first use of violence. In November 1989, a lawyer named Shuji Sakamoto was murdered in his Yokohama apartment. With him, his wife Satoko and their 14-month-old son Taro. Sakamoto had been representing families of Aum members, people who believed their relatives had been drawn into a destructive cult and who were attempting to recover them through legal means. He had been gathering evidence against Aum. He had appeared on a television program discussing his concerns about the organization. Aum killed him, his wife, and his infant son. The three bodies were discovered in 1995, 6 years after the murders, following the subway attack investigation. The Sakamoto family murders had gone unsolved for 6 years. In June 1994, Aum released Sarin in Matsumoto, a residential neighborhood in Nagano Prefecture where judges who were hearing a case that might have ruled against Aum were living. The Matsumoto attack killed 8 people and injured approximately 200. Japanese police initially suspected a local resident, a man who had been near the release site and who was critically ill after the attack. The actual perpetrators were not identified until after the Tokyo attack. The Tokyo subway attack of March 20, 1995, was ordered not because the subway was a strategic target. It was ordered because Japanese police had gathered enough evidence to raid Aum's facilities and Asahara needed a distraction. He convened what one historian called a war council in the back of a limousine on the night of March 18 and ordered the attack. His hope was that the police would be so consumed by the aftermath that the planned raid would be delayed long enough for Aum to complete other preparations. The police raided the facilities 2 days after the attack anyway. The police raid on Aum's facilities 2 days after the Tokyo attack found what investigators had suspected. Tons of chemical precursors. Laboratory equipment for producing sarin. Plans for further attacks. The specific infrastructure of a weapons program that had been operating for years inside a registered religious organization. What they did not immediately find was Asahara. He was eventually located on May 16, 1995, nearly 2 months after the subway attack, hidden inside a room built into the walls of the Mount Fuji compound. He was surrounded by cache and audio recordings. He was found sitting in meditation posture, or something that resembled it. He was arrested. His trial became one of the longest in Japanese legal history, lasting nearly 9 years, from 1996 to 2004. The length reflected both the complexity of the charges. Asahara was tried for multiple counts of murder relating to numerous separate incidents, and the specific procedural complexity of a case involving a defendant whose mental state was repeatedly contested. The court found him mentally competent to stand trial in 2006. He was convicted of masterminding the subway attack and 13 other crimes, including the Matsumoto attack, the Sakamoto family murders, and multiple other killings. He was sentenced to death in 2004. Encyclopedia Britannica. He spent 14 years on death row. On July 6, 2018, Shoko Asahara was hanged, along with 6 of his followers. 6 more members were executed on July 26, NBC News. 13 people were executed in total over the 2-day period. The government took precautions in case of retaliation by his followers. NBC News. The specific concern about retaliation from followers of a man who had just been executed for a terrorist attack reflected something important about Aum Shinrikyo. The organization had not disappeared. Aum Shinrikyo renamed itself Aleph in 2000. A splinter group called Hikari no Wa also formed. Both organizations continue to exist in Japan as of 2024, under government surveillance. They claim to have renounced violence. They continue to attract members. The cult that killed 13 people on a Tuesday morning in Tokyo in 1995 still exists, under a different name. The Aum Shinrikyo case raised specific questions about intelligence failure that Japan has not fully answered. Japanese authorities had received warnings about Aum from foreign governments before the Tokyo attack. The CIA had intelligence on the organization. Germany had investigated Aum's activities. Australia had concerns. Japanese police had received complaints from the families of Aum members for years, the same families that Shuji Sakamoto had been representing when he was murdered. The specific question of why a religious organization with an active weapons of mass destruction program was not identified and interrupted before the Tokyo attack, before the Matsumoto attack, before the Sakamoto family murders, has been examined in parliamentary investigations that produced findings but not the full accountability the question demands. The answer that emerges from the investigations is a combination of institutional reluctance to investigate religious organizations in the post-war Japanese legal framework, intelligence sharing failures between domestic and international agencies, and the specific difficulty of believing that a yoga class could become a sarin manufacturer. The difficulty of believing is not an excuse. It is an explanation. On the morning of March 20, 1995, the people who boarded Tokyo's subway at Kasumigaseki, Kodemicho, and Tsukiji stations were going to work. They were office workers, civil servants, students, the ordinary population of a Tuesday morning commute in the world's most populous city. They were not targets in any meaningful sense. They were the people who happened to be on the trains that Aum's members happened to board at the time that Asahara had decided a distraction was needed. 13 of them did not go home. Thousands carried the physical and psychological consequences of that morning for the rest of their lives: impaired vision, neurological effects, post-traumatic stress disorder, the specific residue that a nerve agent attack leaves in the body and the mind of the people who survived it. The Japanese government redesigned its approach to religious organizations after Aum. Intelligence sharing between domestic and international agencies was improved. The specific institutional reluctance to investigate religious groups was addressed. The cult that produced the attack still exists. Under surveillance. Under a different name. Smaller than it was. Still attracting members. Asahara wanted to start World War III. He wanted to trigger the apocalypse. He wanted to survive the end of the world and rebuild it under his authority. He was found hiding in a wall. He was hanged in 2018. The cult he built has not been fully dissolved. The questions about how it was allowed to develop what it developed have not been fully answered. And the people who got on Tokyo's subway on a Tuesday morning in March 1995 just wanted to go to work.